Welcome to another Uncommon Man podcast with me. I'm beyond excited and I'll share something straight away. But Mark Jeffrey's here with me. And just before we hopped on, Mark, I was like, I'm just going to go back and just have a look at a little bit more about at dad life. And I have a look at the hashtags on Instagram. I'll be honest, mate, I had to stop watching them so I could pull my shit together before I hopped on this podcast. I was all teary-eyed, and I don't know if it's like 2 years to in being a father myself or just seeing some of the things that are real to me now that I may have not seen before. I'm like, it's the best. Some of them were hilarious, don't get me wrong. Some of the memes and the videos were just absolute gold. But man, it was pretty heart touching seeing some of the men share their things. So I want to thank you, mate. Thank you for really making the hashtag, the dad life, like a thing. It's awesome.
Well, I wish I could take full credit for that. Like, there's a lot of, there's a lot of great dads out there that add to that. And, I feel like I was just really lucky to kind of get ahead of that when it first came out. And it's one of those things that, um, even after years and years and years of people using it, dad life is still one of the most popular phrases in dads use on social media, and we just love it. I mean, obviously we have the gear and things like that to kind of celebrate it, but we love the stories more than anything else, and we love being able. I'm the same way. Like, I am if I see like kids coming home from the military and surprising their dads, or dads coming home from the military and surprising their kids, I have to unplug that for a minute because I'll just cry all day, just on my phone, just crying the entire day.
It hits you. It hits you right in the heart. You're like, oof, yeah,
Yeah.
that's something. Yeah, it's something special. And I
Yep.
guess that's all throughout life when we've learned, we've lost relationships or we've fallen in love. Things all hit different as we travel through life. And yeah, I really enjoy that. Really enjoy
Yeah.
that
I
dad
like
one.
the quote from Jim Valvano that when he was kind of near the end of his life, he was given an award for ESPN. He was given a speech. Now they give the award called the Jimmy V Award. And he said, every day, if you can laugh, cry, and think at one point of day, laugh, cry, and think, he said, that's a hell of a day. And I try to live by that too. I like to laugh. I try to think, and I'm not afraid to cry, because you can do all those three things in one day. That's a hell of a day.
So that timing is really interesting. I was reflecting on my life the other day and I was like, what have been the great days? Like what did I do in those days that really made them great days? And I looked at it's like actually went surfing in the cold, made me feel really alive. That was one of the things. And I don't surf much at all. I did work that was meaningful. Like I hopped on a coaching call and had some impact in some way and connected with my wife. That was kind of the thing. But I actually really liked that laugh, laugh and cried. What was the last one?
And
Laugh,
think.
cry,
If you can
and
laugh,
think.
cry, and think.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. That's quite cool and very simple. That's
Yeah,
very
I try to
simple.
try to use that. And, when you're a father of younger children, right? Your kids are younger.
Just He's just 2. I've just got the 1 at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I think what I'm starting to realize as an older with parent with older kids, I have a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Wow, yeah.
So it's interesting that I get to now see glimpses that I did okay with certain things by the way that they act as adults.
That's cool.
But also in this generation, and I'm not saying that you have to be a proponent for or against social media, but one of the things that I can see in hindsight now, and I share these with my kids all the time, is because I was able to, either on my camera or on social media, capture moments of us, as doing things then when they were smaller. I'm also able to reflect on things that I did as a dad that I forgot about. And I'm like, yeah, man, that was hard work, but here I am doing it. Like, I have this picture of me with a Captain America mask on that, my son just loved it. But so it's like being able, when you're in it, really, really in it, you're really trying your best, but you don't know. And a lot of times you don't get that either from your kids verbally or to be able to watch them and say, okay, we did something right. They're turning into good kids.
That's that's cool. I hope I have that one day. That's actually a really cool reflection. That's neat. It's the world's totally different with a camera in your pocket. I look at, my brother-in-law set a really cool standard across the family. He does a f he up to the age of 10, I think it was, he was a news presenter, so and editor, so he was pretty good with the camera and everything like that. So he'd make a video for each year for the kids for their son or daughter's birthday, and we'd all sit down and watch it, and I'm like, "That is the coolest thing ever." So
Yep.
my wife does it for our son, and it's just wild. I think about our life as kids. Some of my life is in a photo album that mum used to do every year. I think
Mhm.
we've got about 6 photo albums each as kids. And
Yeah.
for my mum and dad's 40th wedding anniversary, we're like, "Oh, let's get their VCR tape and make it digital."
Yeah.
You put this thing on this digital thing, it was the worst photography in the world that their friend who was a photographer had got drunk and forgotten that that was her role. And so so it's just like so much of their life is missing, it's in their memories, and, um, I really there's always equal and opposite upsides and downsides to something. I really love, though, that idea of we capture so many moments on video and photos now, and it's just the house is filled with beautiful photos that my wife puts up, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I just love this." Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
really
use it.
neat.
I honestly, I love it when I get a prompt. I'll share it with my kids. Most of the time, they're embarrassed, like, "Dad, what was I thinking? Like, look at my hair." But it's a good time to reflect. And I did that. I probably stopped when they were like 13 or 14, but I was like the one that was responsible for all those videos when my kids, and like I would go like hardcore. I would pull all the videos of whatever kids program we were watching. So, it was I don't know, SpongeBob would be a video or whatever, and set it to music, the Backyardigans. These are all ones that I can kind of remember. But I during the time it was so stressful doing that all the time. Like my wife was like, she'd get me the pictures late, and the party would be the next day, and I'd be stressing out. But I go back and watch those now, and I'm so glad that I did that kind of stuff. But you don't always get to like appreciate all the work that you did until sometimes you're able to kind of reflect back on that. So you just got to keep doing it in the now, knowing that it'll pay. And I had people tell me that a lot, but you don't really understand it till you get a little bit older and you're able to kind of look back on it.
Yeah, yeah. Hindsight can be a son of a bitch sometimes
Yeah.
as well. Hey, I wanna talk a little bit about look, you run Legacy Consulting Group.
Mhm.
There's a couple of reasons why I want to touch on that first is there a reason why it was called Legacy? Is there something
Yeah,
behind
man.
that?
And I mean, I'm gonna try not to get into like therapy. Like I'm gonna, you might, be my therapist on this one, but I always just liked the word because I felt like it was something that I wanted to instill in my kids of continuing something on. Now, not in the sense of like continuing my business on. We've kind of had an agreement with my kids, which is look, if you want to take after me and do the things that I do and be an entrepreneur, totally fine. I'm here for it. We're going to talk about it. I'll give you every bit of info that I know. If you want to get into digital marketing, if you want to get into any of that stuff, I'm here for it. I'm more about building a legacy though of knowledge, of experiences, of things that I kind of felt like I had to learn the hard way. And so legacy is important to me. My father passed away when I was 2 from a car accident. And so growing up was a little problematic. I have a great mother who was just phenomenal. I had, male figures and uncles and people that kind of helped fill the gap in my life, but it's still really never the same. And so I think sometimes that shapes how you become a parent is in good, bad, or in different ways also about your experiences. So for me, legacy was just always a big word about wanting to have something that my kids could say, my dad taught me that, or I learned that. And so for us, it's not so much the actual skills of being in digital marketing, which is what I'm in,
Yeah.
but it's skills like this. It's like, so if you go and ask my kids, hey, what is a house? And they'll say an asset. And I'll say, "Well, what's a car?" And they'll say a liability. And I did this when they were little where they could do this now. Those were things that I had to learn the really, really hard way when I grew up. I didn't have the greatest credit. I really didn't have anybody that could say, "Hey, when you do this, don't overextend yourself, save money." All those things I felt like I kinda missed out on, I had to find out on my own. So, I feel like legacy is something that I want my kids to be able to say, "Yeah, I got that from my dad. I got my work ethic from my dad. I got my integrity, showing up on time, the way that I show up," all of those that's what legacy really means to me, not so much and I don't fault people that wanna have the family business, those have seen that they've been very successful. It just means a little bit different in my situation.
Love I love that. The it it answers one of my other questions, but it also pulls on this thread of there's these 2 forks in a row. It's like you can go right, somebody loses somebody, like you lose your father at such a losing your father any time is hard, but losing your father at a critical development stage. Viktor Frankl, I think, was the one who said it, "Show me the boy from 0 to 7 and I'll show you the man." It's when we
Man,
develop all our maps
so
of the
true.
world, right?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to see, you pick this path. It's like the hero goes down the path of, I'll never let that happen to anybody else. And they create a life where they're like, I'm going to make sure that my kids or people around me know how to bridge that gap of knowledge. Or the person takes the other route and they call it the villain. And it's like, well, I couldn't care less for
Yeah.
anybody. There's that path
Yeah.
as well. So I really love it that you've chosen that. And because what I wanted to understand is from your male role models, what was modeled to you about being a man, and what did you have to figure out on your own?
Hmm. Yeah, so I had uncles that as a very young age, I remember my uncles used to like stand me in front of a mirror at like 3 and 4 with a razor with no blade on it.
Wow.
And we would shave, right? And they would allow like me to put on cologne. And at that young age, I just mixed every cologne that they had. It was you could pretty much smell me coming a mile away. But so and they were very like so in when they grew up, along with my father, they were all into sports. So they talked about football all the time. Football was like it was just king with them. And so I learned I had an affinity for that. So I followed along in those footsteps. Um I feel like I what I didn't necessarily have that I kind of had to figure out on my own was things like how to deal with conflict or you know un conversations that were tough or critical, that kind of thing. I didn't necessarily learn that. I had, I'll tell you this, and it's might skip ahead a little bit, but like I remember uh coming home from my honeymoon. My wife and I got married and we had an apartment, and so we you have all these wedding gifts that are sitting around, and my wife says, well, so and so bought us these curtains. Great. It's like, can you hang the curtains up? And it was pretty a simple task. I've never hung curtains before in homes that I've been in, but I figured how hard could it be? So I had this little drill and I tried to read the instructions, and man, I screwed those curtains up so bad. Like like I had holes, like it looked like somebody had just shot holes all in my wall. And something happened to me, Josh, and I don't know. Again, I can't say which road, why I chose the one over the other, but I got really angry. I got really internally angry. I got like all of a sudden this kind of thing had hit over me that said like, if your dad would have been around, you probably would have known how to do that. Now, here's the reality. The reality is I'm probably just not a real handy guy. Now, you give me technology, you give me a problem to solve, I'm your guy. I can get into AI. I know all of that stuff. But some people just aren't handy by nature. My 17-year-old fixes more stuff around the house than I fix, and I let him too because I'm like, I keep handymen in the industry. Like, like th- they see me coming, there's like dollar signs coming. So the reality of it is that regardless of if my dad was around or not, I may have not been inclined to be handy, but a lot of times when you don't have the experience for that, you automatically equate that. And so I think I led a lot of my life kind of feeling like I was behind the eight ball a little bit. And so to overcompensate that, I just worked really hard. And, I think sometimes you can work really hard and it works for you. I also think you can work really hard and it works against you as well because you're always trying to prove that you can do it. And so I overcompensated a lot by just overworking and it helped me. I mean, I eventually started a business because I was a hard worker. So, yeah, I think those were things that like I didn't necessarily get was how to deal with those kind of things, how to deal emotionally with those kind of things, and so I wasn't quite ready when that feeling hit me. I was like, "Whoa, this is new. Where is this coming from?" You know? So, I'm grateful for guys that were around, excuse me, around for me, uncles, fathers, other people's dads that were there. I don't think you can underestimate that, because in the moment, it's not like a kid says to you. You rarely get a kid that says, "Hey, my dad's not really in my life, but you are really teaching me." What happens is you realize on the other side of it, 10 and 15, 20 years later, man, I really got this from those guys. And so I think that's why it's important. I have people in my life that are not related to me in any way that I try to be there for wherever they'll allow me to, because I know what that meant for me to see examples of men as I was growing up.
I'm really interested because you mentioned that anger, and sometimes us men, we develop so much shame around anger, but when we're kind of at our lowest, I always say, "Hey, man, anger right now, if that's all the energy you've got," I'm like, "Cool, like, that's good. It's better than apathy. It's better than who cares, like, I'm not gonna do anything."
Yeah, yeah.
Was that anger, did it drive the hardworking aspect? Was there an anger around, "Why me? Why was my dad taken from me?" And did that drive you?
Yeah, and I would also and here's one thing that I couldn't describe why this happened, but I wouldn't stay on that very long.
Wouldn't stay on anger.
I wouldn't stay on the why did this happen to me? It absolutely would happen.
Yeah,
But I didn't stay on it very long. Like I wouldn't let it define me.
that's beautiful.
And so that's something that, call it the grace of God, that I was able to do that. I couldn't tell you one specific reason why. I just know that I didn't allow that to stay there. And I do think that's also a kind of a thing that guys a lot of times we can get in our own head and stay there and stay there and stay there. And you have to have either people or memories or events or things that can snap you out of that, because I've seen so many guys make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings and ruin him for years to come.
Okay, I'm really interested in this. So when I'm working with men, one of the things that is brutally apparent, and it comes off. It doesn't come off as harsh, but it's something I am very piercing at. It's like, what's the story you're running, and I'm not putting up with it. I'm like, we're changing this. You can either stay here and run this story, mate, and that's sweet, nothing's going to change, or we're changing your story. What was the story you ran to that you we all get into a victim state of some sort, like, "Woe is me, why the hell's this happened to me? This is bloody bullcrap." And then you've gone, "Okay, yep, cool, I've had that moment, and it's time to move on." What was the story that you think or have come to understand about your life that you've played that's made you into the man you are now?
Yeah, so one, I have a really good mother that had some really terrible things happen to her, and I never saw her at one point in my life ever being down about it, talking like, "Woe is me." And just to give you some context, my mother was pregnant with my sister when my dad passed away, right? Now, you also have to remember her generation is way tougher. I think I think the
Yeah,
more and more generations come, they're not as tough as the ones before. So
brutal.
her generation was always kind of like a pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just keep going kind of thing. But I always saw her with a zest and a zeal for life and happy and fun no matter what. And so I think you kind of take on those mannerisms that, those seasons of like despair or whatever, they're just seasons. They're not meant to be there forever. And I'm glad that seasons change for a reason. And I think that's a good way for us to look at it, is that every season changes at some point. You're never going to be in summer your entire life. You're also never going to be in winter your entire life either. So you just got to be able to kind of stay through the seasons long enough to get to the next one. But I've always kind of also been the kind of person that tries to use those narratives as a propellant to say, um, yeah, if I can make it knowing what's I've been up against, like there's not much that you can do to me that I can't, like I'm tough. Like I know I'm tough internally because of what I went through. And I don't know, I don't know if there was a real story throughout, especially my teenage years. I think my mom just gave me such a great, like, life, and when I say great life, we weren't extremely wealthy. I would just say we lived a middle class life, we did okay, but I just never she was never one of the poor as me kind of person. She's just relentless, and I think I just picked it up instinctively and hopefully some good genes, and that's kinda how I approached it.
You mentioned I think two of the most important things for a recipe for just a great life, and I speak to the men, like a great man is your mother's generation, that ability, that stiff upper lip, that ability to go, "You know what? This has happened to me, and I'm going this direction, and I'm tough, and I'm resilient, and I'm in it." And then say, maybe even your kids' generation or a little bit older, certainly probably mine or a little bit younger, that ability to start connecting more with their emotions. The communication's certainly gone up, but it's gone sort of all the way to the other end because they've lost this resilience ability to be like, "Oh, okay, cool, that's my story, I'm gonna change it." It's really interesting because you mentioned even when you had male role models around, and I've seen this in myself, I see this in my clients, I see it in the community that I run, is that how do I navigate conflictual environments, conflictual conversations? How do I still stand and validate who I am and still have hard conversations and not pull back and wander away in my life? It's really nice that you've brought that to the awareness of the resilience of that age and that generation to the connection to emotions and self of the new generations. I feel if we could mix those so well together, which it sounds like you're doing with your kids, is really cool. So you
Well, I'm
end up
I'm
with
trying, but I also wanna say this too, because I think sometimes when you get on, like, episodes or shows like this, you tend to kind of I'm not saying you, I'm saying people that are interviewed, you can tend to kinda put a rosy thing out that just says, "I was just resilient and I was just
yeah.
great." I had some rough spots too, and I'll tell you this, man, over the last 3 years, I've probably improved more on my, emotional awareness, my emotional intelligence, um, being able to articulate where I'm at and not dwell on it, but also not get to the point to where, I'm angry and say things that I'm gonna regret later. So, sometimes like, especially if you had some kinda traumatic event that happened to you younger, I'm not gonna lie and say you're not in some regards behind some kind of an 8 ball. I mean, I feel like people that have 2 loving parents growing up with them that are involved in their life probably have a better shot at being successful. Not entirely everyone, because I know plenty of people that have had that have just went nuts. What I am saying is I do believe in continual improvement, and at some point, I've gotta quit asking the question or quit saying, "When will it get better?" and I've got to start saying, I've got to get better. For me, that's when everything I feel like over the last 5 or so years ago, starting my own business, I'd always worked as like a side hustle, so I'd always had some type of revenue coming in, but like the challenges of starting a business is so different and you don't know it until you get into it. But what you don't wake up one day and just magically the people that you admire in the business world or in that handle relationships well or are emotionally stable. And you know that we've all got those people that we know that we go, man, I wish I could handle it like that guy. Right? It's the same way we look at people in the gym and go, man, I wish I could look like that. Like I wish like why can't I work it? Well, I think we all have to understand that those people aren't superhuman and that all of them had some type of moment in their life where they said, I've got to get better. And for me, everything changed when I don't make it about circumstances, what's happened to me. I make it on what can I do to improve me? Because if I get better, everything gets better.
I love
My
that.
relationship with my wife gets better. My relationship with my kids get better. My relationship with my staff gets better. My business gets better when I get better. And to me, that was really the shift that I had of really I would say the last 5 years of the success that I've had was that.
Yeah. I love that, and the community gets I believe the community in the world gets better. I
Yeah,
believe it's one of
yeah,
I used to coach both females, and men, and then I really started leaning more just to the men's side because I realized that it's not that men create, but our desires are reflected to us in the world. What we want, we go and it's either created by somebody else or we go and build it. I'm like, that
that's right.
means we naturally lead and we naturally create industries behind us and everything like that. Good or bad industries. I look at like the OnlyFans industry only exists because of men. But I
Yeah,
also look at the other amazing things that only exist because of men. So it's like, if you want to have impact and influence, pick the things that have the most influence. I'm like, if you can coach the president of the United States, you've got a massive amount of influence on the world.
yeah,
And so men, when they get it right, it's like, okay, my life's better. All right, now my family life's better. Oh, now my community's life better. Now I'm running a business. Now I'm helping out 7, 8, 10 families. Oh, wow, this is really starting to expand and my influence and impact is really happening.
that's
So
right.
I really love that point of view from you. And I actually want to speak to something that you mentioned because you're a church going man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely a man of faith. Yeah,
Awesome. So one of the things I talk about with men is that there's a divine plan for you. But I tell you, if if you were shown the exact plan and what that was going to look like, you'd never start because that'd be so damn scary. If somebody told
never.
you what it's going to take to run your business and do all these things, you'd never start. You'd be like, "No, man, couch is good. Couch is
That's
good."
so true. But the
And
because the pain of it is like you don't if you no one wants to go through loss, pain, obstacles. No one ever wakes up and goes, "All right, let's go the hard road." So you you have to set up. Well, I mean, and I'll say this too. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be morbid and make people go down the path this way. But no one gets married for the most part and thinks about having to say goodbye to their spouse. Could you ever like think about that? I mean, like in America here, we we have in our vows we say till death do us part. I'm not sure. Okay, but we kind of just gloss over it. We don't really think about it. We just say, yes, that's what I'm supposed to say, to death do us part. So it's like when we get married, we think of all of the amazing things. When we have children, you do not think about when they switch up and try to become independent on their own. And a lot of times it's harder to be a father to older kids, my experience. Because you want to be then at that point you want to be able to tell them what to do and you absolutely can't. So you just have to let them go, "Okay, I know where you're headed. I got to let you do it." So I feel that way too. Is like I don't if I knew where I was headed, I wouldn't have said yes, but I'm so glad that I did even in all of it. I mean, even I don't know if we can get into this now, but like
Yeah.
even the way that I started my business, I would not want to do that again, but it was the best thing in the world that ever happened to me at one of the worst and probably lowest points of my life.
Can you share that? Because there are so many men listening that are just they're either at the I'm over this stage. I just can't keep doing this. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
forever just about there, or all of those things. And like, is this really worth it? I'd
Yeah.
love for you to share your story of how it started and where you're at.
So I love to tell this story because it's one of the I've always heard people with great stories about like that kind of rose from the ashes and all that. And I was like, ah, that's great. This is the only one that I really go, oh man, this was not supposed to turn out how it turned out. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have been for several years. And about, I would say, 8, 9 years ago, I definitely was not taking care of myself from a diabetic standpoint. And having diabetes is kind of crazy because they call it a silent killer because ultimately you can just eat wrong and not take your insulin and all of those things and it doesn't get you like right away. But then one day you wake up and it's like, "Hey, I'm here to collect rent." So, I had started to feel sick, and I was working in a kinda high pressure job, and I wasn't taking care of my diabetes, and I got sick. And I went to the ER. They immediately checked me in. I ended up staying in the hospital for about 3 weeks. My sugar was so high, my A1C was through the roof, so I mean, they're, like, checking my blood sugar every 3 hours, you can't really sleep, they're coming there, they're it got pretty bad, I had issues, just all kinds of medical issues beyond the diabetes that was complications from that. So, I was in the ICU for about a week, which is our intensive care unit here, which is
Mhm.
pretty, like, they're watching you pretty closely. Um, I They finally get it under control. As a result, I get a series of doctors that I need to start seeing now, which is again a lifesaver to have these people. So I go out, I go home, I get to kind of start working on my job, and a funny thing happens is about 3 weeks or so afterwards, I start to get the medical bills that come from that. So where we're at in my life, my wife and I are kids are young. We're renting a home, trying to save up money for a down payment to buy a home. And so I had I had saved up around $1,000 in my savings account.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the savings account. So I look at the first bill that came in. I was like, shoot, this is okay. I got it. We're gonna be all right. So, I got some money in my savings. I'll just reallocate some money. And, the next day, another bill comes in and another bill comes in. And by the time it was all said and done, I had about $20,000 worth of medical bills.
Mm.
And so I remember sitting on this couch that I had, this leather couch, and I had my computer and all of these bills in front of me just sitting there. And I'm working a full-time job, working a 9 to 5, and I was so overwhelmed, Josh. I was like, "This is beyond a few of these that pop in. This is beyond me." And I am a man of faith, but I haven't really been a big prayer. Like, I
Mhm.
I don't do, like, long prayers and things
Yeah.
like that. But I remember bowing my head that night, and I really prayed this really, really simple the most simple prayer that I could really mutter because I was so crushed and just nervous about what was about to happen that I just said, "God, if you will help me get out of this, I promise you, whatever you do, I will pay if you'll give me a strategy to pay these bills off, I'll pay every single one of them off. I just need a strategy because I don't know what to do." And you know, nothing, the clouds didn't open and there was no audible voice, nothing. I went to bed and the next day the bills were still where I left them. And so I don't know how much time passed, but a few weeks passed and a guy called me and said, "Hey, I hear what you're doing on social media. I was working for a really large church. Well, in the States, we'd call them mega churches.
Yeah.
And so we have this really large, I'm working for this really large church. I hear what you're doing for them. My brother is in the music industry. He's really trying to figure out this Facebook thing. Would you come on board to help us with that?" I was like, "Absolutely." He's like, "Well, can you put together a proposal?" I was like, "Absolutely." Immediately goes to Google, how to put together a proposal. And this is back in the day. There was no
Yeah.
AI. It was like you were
No.
borrowing. So I remember just like borrowing as many different proposals as I could find. Man, when I sent that proposal to him, Josh, I was probably sending him a proposal that said I would do veterinarian work and change his oil because I was just borrowing whatever I could find, man. So I sent him the proposal over and I had a fee on there. The guy invites me over to his house. He immediately knocks like $500 off of my fee for the negotiation. And I was like, "Yep, I'll do it." Like he could have negotiated me down to like, minimum wage. I was so desperate. I was like, "Yes." So I took on this client and I just kind of winged it, man. I just tried to throw everything. This is where this hard work ethic of mine came in. And I just tried my best to over deliver and give him everything that I could. And I didn't have anything fancy. I just said, "Do this, man. Do this on your social. And let's do this." And man, he just started growing. His social started growing. And so I was doing that for a couple months. And every time he'd pay me, man, as soon as he'd pay me that extra money, I'd pay down a bill. I mean, immediately. And I wouldn't buy anything else with it. I just did it. So then another guy called me. He said, "Hey, I hear what you're doing for this guy." He said, "You think you could do that for me?" "Yep." "Do you have a proposal?" At that time, "Oh, yes, I got a proposal. And we're not changing your
Minus
oil."
the vet work. Yeah.
That's right. Minus the veterinary work and the auto mechanic work. But if you need that, like I was so desperate, I'd try to change your oil at that point.
I'll
So
figure it
I
out.
sent him
I'll
a
figure it out.
proposal. I worked on that one. And so little by little, I picked up like 3 or 4 clients all through word of mouth. And I wake up one day, like 6 months later, and I had paid every single bill off. And but then and most people would say, "That's great. You made a prayer, you made a vow, it happened, right?" Um, but something clicked in my head and said, "Okay, so now you don't have these $20,000 of bills, but you still have these 3 or 4 clients that are coming in." So then the side hustle kicked in. That's when that term right first started becoming popular. And I was like, "Wait, so I can work my 9 to 5, work this other stuff because I got a good work ethic and I can juggle 2 or 3 things." And so little by little, I started building up and I got better and I got better at what I provided and I got better at my strategy and my fees went higher because I was able to provide and I got some confidence. And so usually when you have some confidence, your fee structure goes up because you know you can deliver. When you're not sure you can deliver, you're
Yeah.
like, "Bro, just pay me whatever you can." And so little by little, I started building a business as a side hustle. And then about 4 years ago, the side hustle became too much and it was overpowering the hustle. And so no staff, no team, just complete solopreneur. I left my job and started it and I haven't looked back ever since. I have 4 staff members now. We've growing year over year and but it hasn't been all roses, man. But but opportunity, this is my biggest takeaway that I want anybody that hears this. If you stayed on long enough, this is what I want you to know. I have found, Josh, that opportunity knocks in chaos. And coming off of that medical issue, having those bills, I can easily look back and say that was the most chaotic moment of my life. Guys, one thing that I would say if you're listening to, the reason finances play such a big deal, especially if you're married and being able to have control of your finances, is because there is nothing that will push a man to the brink than when your money is not right. I can't tell you how many times I fought with my wife over stuff that had nothing to do with anything else more than we were broke and I was stressed.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so I literally had an opportunity knock for me in the middle of chaos. And I look back on it now, back to your original question about guys not wanting to go down those difficult roads. If it hadn't have been for that really traumatic experience, I don't know, Josh, if I would have been pushed to the brink enough to step out and try. I was just trying to not go under with all of this debt. So that guy, I'll tell you this is another thing and we can move on. That guy, I still text him at least once every couple of months or once a month and say, "Hey, Fred, I just want to tell you thanks. I just want to tell you thanks, man. I'm in business because of you." And he's like, "No, you're in business because you built it." I'm like, "No, man, I'm in business because of you. And I just want to
I
thank
love
you for
that.
that." And there's nothing that guy could ever call me and ask me for that I wouldn't do. I wouldn't charge him if my life depended on it. But that was the opportunity. That was the pain that got me to really where I'm at today.
I love that. I love that opportunity knocks and chaos. I've never heard that before, but you're so spot on. It's where we become, we call it, holding your feet to the flame. It's that initiation. It's like, are you going to show up or are you going to shy away? And those men who show up, their life transforms. It's
Yep.
such a powerful, powerful process. And is I don't want to invite chaos into my life right now, but as amazing, as amazing as comfortable is and it's nice, it's like chaos really does transform a man. It's a
It
phenomenal,
does. And
it's a
maybe
phenomenal.
there's some balance of that too, because I love peace and order. And, you know, like if I have a difficult decision to make, I'm gonna clean my desk up. It just it just cleans my whole mind up to say, okay, I can make a better decision. When that thing so I think chaos is not something that anybody wants, but the issue is not to want to invite chaos into your life. The For me, it's to I've rewired myself to say when I'm in a chaotic moment, where is the opportunity that I should be looking at? You know, it's like I'm not huge on the stock market, but if it really plummets, I'm going to buy a couple things that I know are like good stocks
Yep,
because the chaotic moment is where you take advantage of that kind of stuff, not in the opposite way. Yeah.
I love that. We and this still happens in my life, but I just simply ask the question, and I ask the question of myself, and I ask the question of my clients. I'm like, where am I not when it's comfortable and it's peaceful? Because I know winter has to come at some stage, and I'm like, where am I not initiating myself? Where am I choosing to not put my feet towards the flame?
Mm,
And if I can answer that question, I get to choose my own winter. I get to choose my initiation. I'm like, it's going to happen anyway.
yeah.
It's going to come at some stage. Winter must come. And so I'm like, choose it. And I really, I'm like, I haven't had that hard conversation, or I've been hiding from that thing, or it's that there. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go execute on that thing. And it's still hard. It still feels painful, but at least I get to choose it rather than it forced upon me. So that's yeah, I really love that opportunity in chaos.
I
That's
feel
great.
like that's what being a man is,
Yeah.
honestly, is
Yep.
choosing, not choosing if you're going to confront things or hold your feet to the fire, but choosing which one. Because
When and which
it's
one?
wide open if you're going to look for it. There's so whether it's confronting you, confronting a relationship, like trust me, there's so many of those things that if we choose to confront those, there's so much on the other side of that, man. I love that. I love that approach.
Yeah. Where when and where did you find God as your kind of North Star?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small coal mining town in Logan, West Virginia.
Okay.
And I just remember from an early age, my mom um, bringing me to church. And it was just kind of something that we just did, and it was a very, kind of baked into the community. As I got older, um, not so as much, and then when I was in my kind of teenage years, I had some of those experiences where it became more than my mother's God, like the God of,
Mm,
like,
yep.
what my parents wanted for me, or, my mom wanted for me, and more like my own experience. So I've always kind of been a part of that. And then, um, just in my 20s, I married into, my wife's family were in church, in ministry. They were pastors. And so that allowed me to kind of start working in churches and kind of learning that. And so I've kind of progressed quite a bit, in what I do from a business standpoint. I'm always going to help nonprofits and churches. It's part of what I do, but there's also other parts to that too that I've kind of grown into. But yeah, I've always just been involved with church, or just as part of what our family has always done. It's just been a center part of what we've been a part of.
There. I would love it if you could speak to, as you've progressed as a man, a business owner, and you've found those opportunities through chaos, how have you noticed that has changed your connection and your relationship with your wife?
Man, I've got to tell you this. This is some other things that I learned, not because I was seeking it out. So a lot of times when we're married, if you're married, you kind of know, like, this is my lane, this is my wife's lane. We try not to get, so, like, we try not to cross each other's lanes. And so sometimes, because that's so kind of ingrained in us, we don't always ask the other person for something that we think would be outside of their lane. So I can remember when I was in the side hustle stage and I was about to pick up a really big client, like bigger than I had ever had in my life. And I was talking about the pricing for that, and it was going to entail bringing in more of, like, team members that weren't really on my team. They were just kind of people that I knew were in the industry that I could bring on. And I remember telling my wife what I was going to charge them, and she was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I said, "Well, and I try to justify." And what it was, Josh, was that it was really kind of like my confidence and my self-esteem, that I didn't really necessarily feel yet that the value that I brought warranted that. And it was really her taking that off to the side and saying, "You have to know your value," not in an arrogant way, but man, she was like, "Do you know what you bring to the table? And do you also know how hard it is to go out and be able to get clients?" And the more she talked, my chest stuck out. I was like, "Yeah." Yeah. So it was kind of a hack that I learned, that even though my wife is a full-time, family pastor at a church. So she's always been in children's ministry, which that is, a whole different set of skill sets to do. So I naturally wouldn't have, like, necessarily thought, like, "Hey, could you help me with this business opportunity?" But to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of making my way through it. I was trying to get out of those medical bills. And so I learned, like, man, you really have a superpower there. And if you don't tap into it, you're dumb. And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
now it's not like that. I so sometimes, to the point where she probably doesn't wanna hear it, like, "Okay, that's good," but I'm like, "Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what's happening here." What and really, I love to hear her perspective. Um, she can't do it all the time, but I want her to be a part of my team calls with my team, to just be able to listen in, and she's a partner with me on that. And I'm not asking her to be a digital marketing specialist, but I am asking her, because I'll tell you some stuff too. It's like, I'm not wired to send you a gift card on your birthday. I love that it happens,
yes.
right? Um, if my assistant Sierra is listening to this, I'm just going to have and be transparent. The cookies that you got the other day on Assistance Appreciation Day was straight from my wife's idea. I'm so happy that that happens and I celebrate it, but it's not how I'm wired. So I want her to be involved in that as much as she wants because she not only speaks to things on that side, but she also speaks to me as a man and reminds me, "Hey, you're a good man. You're brilliant. You got." She'll come up to me, man, and she'll be like, "This beautiful mind." She'll just tap me on the head. "This beautiful." I'm like, "Yeah, I got a beautiful mind." So so my
Mate,
wife really is a superpower, and when I really I stumbled onto it just talking to her about it because I was with this deal was so big. But once that happened, everything shifted. And man, I know there's a lot of guys listening that you may not have that, or you may not be married or whatever, but I'm gonna tell you, the guys that are married, your spouse is such a cheat code, bro, when you can do that. It really is.
I
Yeah,
that I just it makes me feel so warm and good that that is in your life because I feel how much of a great man you are, and I love it when that is reflected in how amazing your wife is. But a great partner, and I say this to all men, I say the greatest investment you'll ever make, ever in your life, will be the woman you choose to
it
be by
is,
your side.
man. It
Easy, it'll be better than any home you build or investment you make, it'll be her. But use her, and I speak to her like an oracle. I do the same thing. "Here's my idea. What am I not seeing?" And she'd
yeah,
be like, I'm not so sure about that guy, and I think that that's not gonna work." And it takes a level of openness because your ideas are you, they're part of you, and you're leaving yourself open for ridicule, but it takes strength, and that's
right.
it's needed. And then the breathing the life into you it's just to have that woman on your team, just those moments when when you think you're gonna, "Oh, I'm going for it." No, you're not. You're playing with just 1 foot, 2
Yeah,
feet. I wanna see you jump right in. I got your back. I'm here for you, and do this, this, and this. And you're like, "Thank you. Thank you for
yeah.
seeing me." And
You're right,
I
man.
I'm
It's a
so
cheat
glad you
code,
have that in
man.
your
It
life.
really is
It's
a
a
cheat
cheat
code
code.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And it takes it and this is just a reflection for you as well. It's just it takes a really grounded and great man to be able to utilize the cheat code because you have to have courage to be like, "She might tell me this is stupid, I'm an idiot." It's like,
yeah,
and you gotta be okay with that, and she feels the woman who can give true feedback is the woman who actually feels safe in your presence.
yeah. And
And
Josh, can I say this too? Because again, I don't ever want things to feel rosy, like I've always got that right.
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna take this back to like what we were talking about my father and how some of this kind of pulls into this. So my dad left for work one morning worked in the coal mines and never came home. And so for me in my house, one thing that there's a few things that I have picked up on that I instinctively do because of how that shaped me is a few things. If my kids or my wife ever leave my house, I'm saying I love you before they hit that door instinctively. Um, I know if my wife and if we get into arguments, um, we're not leaving the house without either trying to fix it or at least saying, "Hey, we don't agree, but I love you."
yeah,
Because it's just it's ingrained in me, right? But I'll tell you another thing that kind of like fostered in me, kind of like from an emotional standpoint, is because I don't want there to be things unsaid. Now, a therapist might say, "Hey, we got to work on that." I don't know. I'll let you guys decide that. But I don't always agree or take so if I'm asking for the advice, it's one thing. If I don't ask for it and I'm given it, so like there was an instance that we were talking about a couple of days ago, and she told me one way to handle it, and I totally didn't agree. And I just sat on it. And the more I thought about it, I was like, she's right. I went back to her and said, I just want you to know something. What you said was right. And I'm glad I didn't handle it the way that I wanted to handle it. I'm glad I handled it your way. I'll tell you why that's important to me is one, it's probably built into all that stuff with my dad leaving and never coming home. But two, I don't ever want to put her in a situation where she feels like she's unable to give me if I'm about to wreck, tell me I'm about to wreck. But if I scream it and yell at you every time you tell me I'm about to wreck, I'm just going to let you wreck. And so I make sure if I can to say, "Hey, that was right.
That's
I did
amazing.
what you said. It worked." And I don't know if that makes me a strong man or not. I just know it's working for me.
It makes you beyond strong, to be totally honest. A man who can sit on something and actually look at the truth of the other side, even though he's fixated on, "No, this is definitely the right way," but actually take his time and breathe and go, "Where's the truth in this other perspective? Where is the opportunity?" And then go, "Oh, actually, that's better." And then to take another step and go, "Babe, thanks. Like, you were right, and I really appreciate that." And it just invites them to do it more, and they feel safe doing it. It's all the good things. I really love the structure you've set up in your relationship. It's fantastic. It's awesome. So
Well,
wonderful.
I don't know how we did it. We're 23 years and it's working. So I'm
Great.
grateful to God for that.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. I think I wanted to touch on the God part and the religious part for a bit. A few months ago, I watched, The Manosphere on Netflix, and I was like, "Wow, this is." There was a
I
piece of me
watched
that
that
was.
too.
Yeah, there was a piece of
Woo!
me that was angry, there was a piece of me that was upset, there was a piece of me that was more motivated for the work that we do
Yeah.
to stretch further and try and impact more. And right at the start of the, program, I was sitting there with my wife, Fleur, and I said, "Look, I can almost guarantee you that all of these guys don't have a father. They possibly have an all-devouring mother who just thinks the sun absolutely shines out of every hole of that man.
Yep.
And, and I imagine they don't have a North Star, whether it be God, whether it be a religion, whether it be a mentor. I guarantee you that's their life." And by the end of it, well, I think it was about halfway in, I was like, "See, this is a perfect
It
recipe."
was. It was exactly the way you said it. No dad
Yeah,
or that mom in the end was woo.
yeah, I was like, "Wow."
Yeah.
And I don't agree with all aspects of how we have twisted what God is and what religion is and those sorts of things, but I certainly look at the positive impact, and the thing that I think we're so missing now because we necessarily gone against religion, but we question so many aspects of it, and probably rightly so in many situations and things. But we're missing the powerful piece, the North Star, the surrender, the guidance, the idea that, hey, someone's watching me, watching out for me, but also watching my every move as well. How am I going to show up? What should I do here? How do I reflect? And I watched that program and I was like, he said the quote right at the start. I said, what do you do? And he goes, "I teach boys how to be boys." And I went, "That's it right there. That's the problem right there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need boys going to be taught how to be men, and you can't be initiated by another boy. You need
You
elders
can't.
and
No, yeah, that's
no,
right.
need elders and religion and God and the pastor and everything that was in the church and a healthy church was you had that. You had, "Hey, you're a boy now, and here's an initiation. Here's a set of questions. Here's some reflections. Here's your chance to step into the chaos and see the opportunity." And so, I guess, are your children both into the church as well, just through your influence, or are they finding their own version of God now as well?
Yeah, and so I think, definitely our influence has been there, but we also kind of encourage them. My son went through. My son is a really good example of a well kind of. I'm trying to find the right word for it, but he's very diverse in his. I call him a warrior poet because
That's a beautiful archetype.
he's a very manly man who can fix things and work on cars and likes his car loud and just all of that stuff. And he's just into all of manly things. But he also when I talk to his teachers and when I talk to people at his school, they talk about how empathetic he is and how, he looks for, people to encourage and things like that. And um, I think that's us being able to tell them to find God in their own way. And what I just try to do, I try to my best to not shove my belief down their throat as much as I do try to live it out in front of them if I can. And, um, but we have an extended family of people that we know are, my side of the family, my wife's side of the family are all, um, have a relationship with God in the Christian faith, and again, I know there's all kinds of people watching this. I am not here to try to convince you one way or the other. Yeah, I just know that for us, it's worked that way, and to say, hey, find God is real, and we're going to do our best to kind of educate you on that and help you. But you're going to also have to find your own way and your own path with that. So that's kind of the approach that he and his and my wife take. That myself and my
Yeah.
wife take.
I love that, Mark. I really do. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you'd love to share that you think would be really beneficial to the men listening?
No, I just, I do think I reflect so much about what's happened to me over the last 4 or 5 years, only because that's where life changed drastically for me from like a business standpoint. And I actually, you know, I think as long as you're alive, there is another version of you that is waiting to be discovered by you. And I think the moment that you kind of say, I'm done, um, you're done in a lot of ways. And so I feel you have to be comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to if you really want to succeed and you want to be successful at whatever that is. And really I would say success, and it doesn't always follow this, but if you can say that you've gotten better um a year ago from where you were at, or a month ago, or a week ago, if you've moved that needle, I think that you can say that you've been successful. Because there's certain things that are going to happen that you're not going to be able to say, I'm better last this year than I was last year. Sometimes you're not going to have year to year growth like that when it comes to like experiences. It's just life. But the thing that changed for me is that knowing once I became an entrepreneur that it wasn't just the hard work ethic. That's actually what got me to become a business owner, but it's actually not the skill that grows my business. And so I had to come, it was very uncomfortable for me to learn how to be better at delegation, to bring
Yeah.
people along with me that could help me. I'll tell you one other thing though that I would say as even as beyond personal development is the type of people that you surround yourself with is so important. I have people in my life that have been friends with me since I was in high school. And those are the easiest relationships I will ever have because when I show up, when I go back to Alabama next week, um, I'll call my two friends and we'll hang out and it'll be the easiest conversation I ever had because we met each other when we had nothing. There was nothing to climb. There was no ladder, no comparison. It's like, hey, you like me? I like you. Let's be friends. Let's hang out.
So good.
And you need those relationships. You need to just be able to chill.
Yeah.
But I also have had to seek out relationships when I became an entrepreneur, especially
Mm.
of people that had done things either on the level that I'm at, because you need to be able to have conversations about the things that you are going through with somebody that gets it, just so they say, yeah, you're not crazy. I went through that too. And then I had to seek out people that were at a much higher level than me. I have a mentor who I have been about every 2 to 3 months. I take him to a restaurant called Cracker Barrel, which and it's the cheapest breakfast I'll ever tops for both of our meals might be $30 tops.
Wow. Wow.
tops. Now, I've taken him to a couple steakhouses before, but he's a real simple guy, and he runs one of the largest architectural firms in the state of Texas. He's got 50 employees, multimillionaire business. But I just sit there and let him talk to me about business and my life. And he asks me questions and pushes me and challenges me and asks me what I'm doing. And he talks to me about how I'm saving for the future and how I'm getting like, it's just, and I just let him talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And I come loaded with questions. And having those kind of people of being able to be intelligent enough to say, instead of just waking up going, I'll just hang out with whoever I encounter, which is what a lot of people do. And that probably works in some degree. But I have to realize that I got friends, and then I have peers, and then I have mentors, and I have coaches, and all of them play a different part in my life. And being able to um I've got people that I listen to that personally I don't really like that well. And I would never say, let's go chill together. We're not going to get a beer together ever. But they're we're at a level business wise that I know I want to be at. And so I've got to humble myself enough to say, all right, we may not hang out, but you got something I got to learn. To me, that's one of the biggest hacks that a guy can have is and it's just like what you said about show me 0 to 7. There's another one that says you show me your friends, I'll show you the man you're becoming or the man that you are.
That's a great one.
And
It's
so
funny.
yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. My mentor, who's now my business partner, has a formula. His mentors are people that really piss him off. So he hates the way they do social media. He hates the way they shop. It really triggers him. He's like, oh, and he's
Yeah.
like, I always end up working with those because he always one of his formulas is trust the trigger to teach. And it was funny.
I love that, man.
Yeah, when I hired him, he fired me in my own company, and I hired him for that reason. He's like, this is how it's going to work, and I'm like, okay, and it was the toughest 6 to 8 months in business. It was rough. It was
Yeah.
really hard, and, come out the other side, and
I
I
would sit
I've
down
been
with him and he would say, this was 4 years ago. Hey man, when are you going to quit your job? I'm just waiting to get it all ready. He
yes.
said, he goes, I'm trying to push you out of the nest. And he would tell me, if you don't just rip the Band-Aid off and try to wait until it's perfect, because I'm wired that way. Let me tell you how this is. I know we have to end in a minute, but when my wife was talking to me, she wanted to have kids more than anything else. And I was like, we got to be debt free. I want $10,000 in the bank. And so, I mean, $10,000 back then would have taken me 60 years at that pace. It was just so far out of reach. And then finally, it was just like I realized, like it's never going to be perfect. And I'll some another thing that I've learned and I try to hold myself to is that sometimes we do what I call noble excuses. We make noble excuses, and we say, "I'm not going to launch this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to jump out there because here's the excuse. I'm a person of excellence. I want it to be, I want it to be excellent. And that sounds
That's
so good. And we trick our brain to go, yeah. So we're not going to launch this program. We're not going to put this out on social media. We're not going to go ask the girl out. We're not going to, whatever that is, we're not going to do any of that because we've tricked ourselves to say, I got to get my stuff right. And what
I
it
love
really
that.
is it's a noble excuse though, because
Noble
you are
excuse.
afraid of rejection or failing or fear of someone thinking that, who does this guy think he is? And those are noble excuses. And we kick the can down the line for so long before we do it. And so my mentor would just say, I'd take him out every time we'd go, when'd you quit your job? And I remember I came back to him about a month later after I'd started my business, and I was like, you were right, man. I was like, I love what I'm doing. And I was like, more opportunities came the moment I did it. And again, you can whether you believe in God or not, I do believe that there are things set up in store for us, call it whatever you want. I believe that they are stored up for us when we make a decision. And the thing is, you just the same way that you don't know that what pain is going to be involved to get you to your opportunity, you also don't know what amazing stuff is on the other side of saying yes to that. And so wherever you're sitting at, man, like, don't be afraid to prepare for things that you haven't seen yet. And for me, preparation is, I feel like there's waves of opportunity scheduled for me all the way down the line. And the difference, if you're a surfer, between riding a wave or drowning in it is being prepared enough to start swimming before the wave gets there.
That is such a beautiful analogy. Yes, perfect, perfect. Just in the right spot, right time, just hanging out. Sometimes you got to move all the time with your paddling because the the current's there, and you just got to keep it up. And then suddenly,
That's right.
that wave
Yeah.
just hits just perfect. I love that. Oh, Mark, thank you so much for your time, brother. It's been a real pleasure, and I know that this is going to just it's just gonna hit men in the heart in the right way, and it's so lovely that you took the time to share this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for finding me, man. I appreciate that. And it's
That
just
is
a really real honor to be able to talk to your audience. And
that
um
is a wild thing. I'm a big believer in the soul contract, and it doesn't matter how it happens, whether it's through AI, whether it's a thing. There's just going to be people you meet at a stage in your life, and it's either we've got to have a conversation, you got to do some work together, whatever it is. It's like that's going to happen,
yeah.
and yeah, it's been such a privilege. So thanks.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, man.